When am I not crying in these episodes?
I know. So true.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bible Geeks podcast. I'm Brian Sheely.
I'm Ryan Choi.
And in this episode, we're going to conclude our winter watch party for season 2 of The Chosen. This season ends as Jesus steps forward to preach the great Sermon on the Mount, leaving us in anticipation for the greatest sermon ever preached.
So today we're talking about Jesus and the art of the sermon. And we're also going to do a Bible fact check on the 12, now that all the 12 disciples have been introduced.
And then we're wrapping up the season with some Golden Sandal Awards to celebrate the moments and characters that stood out to us.
Okay, we're about to get there to the Sermon on the Mount. We have only talked about the Sermon on the Mount a million times on this podcast. This is we are now at like 270 something. It's the greatest sermon ever, and Jesus is here at the end of the second season of The Chosen. Jesus is in the final stages of preparing it, and season ends right before he, as Matthew says, opens his mouth and begins to teach. And so what we've seen is, like, instead of showing us the sermon, the episode has shown us the preparation, all the prayer and the care and the intentionality he's brought to this sermon. So I just thought we could talk a little bit here to start about sermon prep and about Jesus and the art of, like, sermon craft, right?
Ooh.
So do you have any hesitation, first of all, with the idea that Jesus was, like, working carefully to craft the wording and the structure of the sermon? Do you, or, you know, like, I know as a kid, I always thought, well, Jesus just opens his mouth and then, like, this fully structured, beautiful thing comes out, which is possible. But how do you think of that?
I don't know. As so many things are.
Good answer.
I could see it in many different ways. My gut tells me that if I want to relate to Jesus on a human level, then a lot of what I wind up feeling, I want to imagine Jesus also working through that himself. And for me, it is a struggle. I think anytime I think about Jesus being, like, supernaturally able to do or, to think in ways that I wouldn't think. Now, of course, Jesus could read people's minds, that he had many opportunities to do things that are just amazing to me that I can't even describe. But I want to think that Jesus had to work through some things. And I actually really appreciate that about some of these Chosen episodes, that it's portraying Jesus in that humanly relatable way where he's like, okay, I could say it this way, or I could say it that way. And if that is not completely relatable to me in so many cases, I don't know what is. What about you?
I think, especially when you think about the structure, I think it makes a lot of sense that he crafted it, that he was thinking through. It's so technical, and there's the numbers in everything, and
right,
the intro and the conclusion, and then the 3 big sections in the middle, and the way it all flows together. It seems crafted, and I certainly don't think Jesus had any difficulty saying something wise and profound, but it does seem like, he put prayer and thought into how to say this, and this is really positioned in the book of Matthew as something that Jesus has brought all these people together, and then he brings his disciples in and declares this sermon as an important moment of teaching that is going to set the tone for ethical thinking, understanding of God, everything from then on. From the moment he preaches this becomes some of the most important words ever spoken, and as we said, the greatest sermon.
Yeah.
And so it does make a lot of sense to me that he would have spent some time, thinking through it. It doesn't mean he lacked any authority. It means he cared deeply about communicating it, and he spoke this truth in a way that he designed for its maximum impact.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you think through it, like in this episode, you get to these moments where there's a lot of behind the scenes work of what goes into a sermon and what doesn't go into a sermon, and how Jesus is like involving his disciples in some ways. And, you know, we really, I think, in the same vein of the question that you're asking there, it's like, are these, or can we imagine these as being real scenarios that Jesus would have been wrestling with, you know, how to craft it, how to structure it, and then even like, you know, bouncing these ideas off of his disciples in some very concrete ways. Like, should I say this? Should I not say that? Like, you know, how would that have gone if he were involving them? Like, for them to be shaping some of this in some ways, I think is just a cool thought to think about.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Obviously, you and I value collaboration a lot. That's why we have this show.
Right.
And, you know, we have for many, many years knocked around sermon ideas with each other. But I you know, what do you think of Jesus using thinking partners?
Well, it would have made so much sense, right? If the disciples were always spending so much time around Jesus, I can't imagine him not talking about this stuff with them. And of course, he was a teacher, but all good teachers are involving people around them in the process, you know, to help them kind of come to those same conclusions themselves. And I don't entirely think that he was asking them for like deep theological lessons, because I feel like he brought all of those to the table himself. But, you know, maybe in ways of like, how am I going to phrase this, or could I say it this way? You know, I don't know. I don't know if that ever happened with his disciples, but I can imagine that it might have.
Yeah, it's not, hey, do you think this is true? It's, what is more effective if I say it this way or if I say it that way?
Yeah.
You know, it's a very different thing. But yeah, I kind of don't think, based on how he's presented in the gospel, that happened, but I don't have any problem with the idea of it. And, you know, knowing how he does seek collaboration from people, as we've talked about many times in other areas. I mean, he's sending them out to do this work,
right,
and he's preparing them to teach. I mean, it could be even for their benefit as much as, you know, the final output, that he is involving them in thinking through it. And one of the things they're working on together that in the show, Matthew and him are talking about, is the tone of the sermon. Matthew worries that the sermon is too heavy or negative, and Jesus makes some final adjustments. How would you describe, talking about the Sermon on the Mount itself, Jesus' balance here in that sermon of blessing and challenge, comfort and confrontation, you know, the hard and the light, the positive, the negative?
Oh boy. I mean, so you're asking like how for my own preaching that is, or
no, well, I want to get there to your own preaching, but I thought I just was thinking about the Sermon on the Mount itself, and you know, there are some hard bits in it.
Right.
You know, cut out your own eye, if anybody, you know, about marriage, divorce, about lust, about all these things, but also, you know, there's some lightness to it. There's some humor. I don't know. What do you think about the balance here? Does it seem to you like Jesus has, you know, tried to lean in one way here, or what is the effect and the force of the overall sermon to you? Does it leave you with a sense of, wow, I don't think anybody is ever going to be able to do this. I'm just so depressed, which is something that some people have said, that some people even take it, which I think is totally off base, that the sermon is there to tell you how you can never achieve the standard. Therefore, it's not about doing it. It's not about intending it to live, but rather about saying, you know, give up, which he says, no, do this. Certainly, we're not going to do it perfectly. We need grace. But anyway, what is your sense of that positive and negative? And then if you want to just roll that right into thinking about that balance of positive and negative in your own teaching, and what do you strive for learning from Jesus' teaching?
I feel like it's the correct amount of positive and negative. I mean, that's the only proper answer.
Good answer.
You know, as the master teacher, I think he's got it on lock. But
I wasn't looking for a critique, but just observations here about what is he doing here.
It is intensely, I won't say negative, but I will say that it's intensely confrontational in a way that leaves me connecting with different parts of it in powerful ways. And I feel like there could have been a lot more softness to the sermon that would have left the hearers, and including us today, would have left us being able to discount a lot of things. It is the shocking nature of some of the hard and fast black and whites that he gives in the sermon that really do sit with you for a while. Like, did he mean that? And so much so that it surprises me every time I hear people do it, but also when I do it myself, because I have, where we'll immediately excuse and soften the blow that Jesus intended to give squarely.
Yeah.
Where we'll say, it will read the verse about plucking out your own eye. And in the next phrase, we'll say, and of course he didn't mean that literally. And it's like, wait a second. If he would have needed an asterisk there, he would have provided it when he said it the first time. And I feel like he was intending for it to sit in a way that leaves you just thinking about it. And so I appreciate that so much. It is something that I learn in my preaching a lot is I'm naturally given to sort of soften the edges and round off the sharp corners of things. And I have learned that for something to become memorable and sticky, sometimes you have to say it in the way that provides the most abrasiveness to it, in loving ways, of course.
Mm-hmm. Most things don't need to be corrected. You don't need to correct Jesus' statement. Sometimes there have been misunderstandings and whole false doctrines built on something, and at some point you have to come back around and explain, but you want to let the force of the metaphor or the hyperbole or the hard statement sit with us. And I appreciate that statement. And about your statement that the confrontational nature of the sermon gives it its force for us personally. Right. I mean, that's a lot of it. Certainly there's comfort and there's blessing in it, but and Matthew 6, the end of the chapter, that chapter won our favorite Bible chapter Bible bracket. I think largely because of the whole section on anxiety and the Father's provision. And so there's great comfort and promise in the sermon, but even that is in the tone in some ways of correction. Don't be so anxious,
Yeah.
Trust God. What, don't you think he knows? And so he's still really calling us out even when he's bringing that comfort. And we need a corrective. We constantly need that. And so he doesn't soothsay our itching ears. He gives us the hard truths we need. And in that, we find the healing and we find the comfort. Last sermon question I have for you here about this is about introductions. Matthew, of course, the sermon that Jesus preached had the best possible introduction that you can imagine, what we call the Beatitudes. And so I just wanted to ask you, what do you think a sermon introduction should accomplish? And why did the Beatitudes work so well as an entry point here?
Yeah. Well, you and I just talk about this a lot, right? It's like, how do you get people hooked in the beginning of a discussion? How do you get them, following you, listening to you? How do you open their ears? This is not, it's not a boring, dry introduction. Webster's dictionary says he's not a whatever. Like, it's not anything like that. I think the way that a sermon starts is really important. And for Jesus to just list off those things that are blessed and in such a way that it puts this contrast between things and holds up things that you just are like, wait a second, what? It's nothing too confrontational yet. He's just speaking in the abstract here about a few things that are actually good, and all of them sound terrible, or really like, not the things you would think that would be held up in that high pedestal. It's intriguing.
Yes.
It's looping people in right away to like, this is going to be different. Put on, buckle up, everybody.
We sometimes talk about the reticular activating system, like when something gets your attention and what? Okay, I'm paying attention. And when you start flipping these ideas, happy are those who mourn, what? But also there is the idea of a blessing and speaking blessings. There's a familiarity in the Hebrew scriptures with it, and there's the rhythm of it, the way that this parallel structure works. There's a lot of power there. I like what you said there about getting people's attention with the surprise of it, but also now that I'm thinking, I'm leaning in and ready to hear the deeper next step of the teaching. So.
Yeah, that's good. I like this episode a lot.
Okay, well, we also in this episode meet the final one of the disciples, final one of the 12, as Judas is introduced.
Yep.
And I'm sure we'll have many future conversations about Judas, but I thought just with all of the 12 now in the fold here, there's an opportunity for a little Bible fact check, little Bible trivia about the 12. And so I'm going to do these rapid fire here.
Okay.
The first thing I have for you is I want you to give me the partner of each of these. So when Matthew lists the apostles in Matthew 10, verses 2-4, he puts them in these pairs. And maybe this is how Jesus sent them out 2 by 2. Maybe it's just for memory, but he puts them in pairs, this person and this person. So there's 6 pairs. I'm going to give you the first one in the pair, and I want you to give me the second one. And if you're thinking about, even the show can tell you some of the answers because they do a pretty good job of pairing them together. Okay. Ready. Simon Peter.
Andrew.
Good. His brother. James, son of Zebedee.
John.
His brother.
Yeah.
Philip.
We talked about this on, this was Bartholomew, who we also think was, okay, gotcha.
Probably Nathaniel.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Thomas. Who kind of thinks like Thomas according to the show?
Matthew.
Yeah, you got 2 analytical people, which maybe there's some evidence for there.
Thanks for the assist.
In the scriptures, yeah. And then James, little James, or James the son of Alphaeus, James the one they call the less.
Also Thaddeus.
Yeah.
I had to sing the song there for a second.
There you go. And then, interestingly, Simon the Zealot paired with the last one.
Judas. Yeah, okay.
Judas Iscariot, yeah. Okay. Good job, yeah. Good job pairing those. I think you get 100% there.
Sweet.
And here's a couple questions about questions. Which disciple asked, where are we going to buy bread? Very practical question, as well as a more theological question. Would you show us the Father, Jesus? Same disciple.
Oh, no. See, this is where I'm going to fall down because it's so hard for me to connect like the specific questions. Where are you going to buy bread?
So this was one of John the Baptist's disciples.
So this was Andrew?
Nope. The other one.
Nathaniel.
Philip. Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? It doesn't completely go with the picture of Philip in the
really
show.
Does
in my
not.
opinion.
No, now I'm squaring a lot of things together here. Okay, Philip. Gotcha.
Who do you think had the most recorded questions of Jesus out of all the 12?
I want to think it was Peter, but I might be wrong about that.
Absolutely. No, that's right.
Yeah.
True to everything we know about him. And then getting to know them a little better, just a few more here. Who kept the money?
That would have been Judas.
Correct. Who was most opposed to Rome, probably, you would think.
The Zealot would have been, I would have imagined.
The Zealot.
Yeah.
Why do you think there were 12?
Oh, boy. Like, can we get into numerology here and all of the numbering and things?
Yeah.
Well, I asked this question to our junior high kids or our younger kids here that I'm teaching right now. And I was thinking, about the tribes. Like, why do you think there were 12 tribes? And, they went back to the 12 sons. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, why 12? And it is a good question. I don't really know why 12, but I think, they're all able to be paired with each other and that kind of thing being even. But after the 12 tribes is probably the only answer that I've got. What do you think?
Yeah. That's what I think is.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Jesus is giving this symbol of restoration in the new covenant community, right? There's the 12 patriarchs, and now there's these 12 disciples that as he is creating this true Israel, this new Israel. I don't know. I definitely think that there's a connection to the 12 sons of Jacob and the 12 tribes.
These little quizzes this winter watch party have been fun. I've not prepared myself as much as maybe I could have for our time together.
I love that I ended up being the one asking the question every time. But
yeah, all right.
Yeah, I don't think you've given me a lot of quizzes. But here's the last thing for us.
Okay.
It's the last episode of the season, and I thought maybe we could give some. You called them the Golden Sandal Awards, I think, earlier in the season. So let's give some season-long Golden Sandal Awards. First category, biblical character newly appreciated. Like, which character did you kind of grow in appreciation for the real person as revealed in the Bible as you found them? And I can give you nominees if you want, or if you have one that comes to mind.
No, I think the first one that comes to mind is Simon the Zealot for me. Because it's just like, it's only a word in the New Testament text, and there's so much buried within that word that without being so intimately connected with the cultural context of what's going on at the time, Simon the Zealot may just mean anything to me. But then you see an episode like this, you see this series, and it's like, oh, I get the tension now. I see what's going on. And I feel like that's one of my favorite newly appreciated characters. What about you?
That is a great answer. I was thinking of Nathaniel.
Ooh.
Just that moment under the tree, I saw you. I think I want to preach on I saw you under the tree, and then, an Israelite without guile, without deceit. I think that's interesting.
Okay.
Next category, most likely sermon illustration. Something that you think you might bust out, or as I just brought up, it could be Nathaniel under the fig tree, or Jesus questions, do you want to be healed? Jesse, who, we don't know his name, but, picking up his mat and that whole scene. Maybe Philip's come and see. Is there something that you, as you're thinking back to the season, you're like, boy, that's going to show up in one of my sermons?
Oh, man. I mean, there are so many of those moments. I feel like there was a moment, I think, in one of the last episodes where Jesus is talking to some of the disciples, and they say they had some like contest or something that was going on, and they come back, and Jesus knows that they were not doing what they said that they were doing, or where they said they were going to be. And they said, no, we wanted to come back and find out what was going on and what were the details. And Matthew starts reiterating and going through the list of details. Well, we did this and we went here. And Jesus turns to Matthew and he says, it's not about the details, Matthew. Just stop.
Oh.
And I was just, at that moment, I was just like, sometimes I'm Matthew.
I'm talking to you, Brian. I almost did like a golden spreadsheet award.
Yeah.
The Brian's, I think we all know Matthew gets that. So
I feel like that's probably on my list for sermon illustrations. Maybe a deeper cut, but
that's really good. Yeah, that's great. Okay, we're going to roll out the red carpet here. It's like Oscar season. We're going to do best supporting actor and actress, so male and female.
The actor that plays Matthew, I'm just leaning into Matthew here. I'm sorry, but I won't apologize for it again. I feel like Matthew, his character, his portrayal, the actor who portrays him, was it Paris Patel? I think he's, I love Matthew. I think he does a great job.
He's fantastic. I think Philip really has a lot of charisma, Yoshi Brigas, but I'm going to go in this season. I feel like Simon Peter's character even stepped more into this relatable. There's just a lot of character moments. So I'm going to go Shahar Isaac for my pick.
Got it.
And then best supporting actress. Who gets your award?
Oh, Jesus'
These are
mother.
all so great.
I know, right? But Jesus' mother, I think throughout this season has, I've been so happy to see the moments where she pops in because, it just makes you imagine like what their relationship was, how you see it there in John early on with her interaction with Jesus at the wedding feast and those kinds of things. But you don't get to see it very much after that. And I have to imagine that these moments where she pops in, she must be just completely the center of the disciples' attention when Jesus isn't around, knowing what she knows and asking her the questions they're asking her. And I love her portrayal in this as well. It's just so motherly and caring and convicting in some ways that I also find entertaining. What about you?
It is. And she was really, I don't think we saw her in the first season or not like this.
Not
so
much,
we've gotten to know her. Yeah. And I went with the other Mary Magdalene. I just think she had this roller coaster of a season, Elizabeth Tabish, and I think her performance was just full of so many different layers. Yeah. And so I really loved her. Okay, next one is the I'm Not Crying, You're Crying award. a moment. What moment stands out to you? It's an emotional, poignant moment in the season.
When am I not crying in these episodes?
So true.
Oh, boy.
I have some nominees. Nathaniel under the fig tree, Jesse dancing, Jesus forgiving Mary Magdalene, Mary removing Jesus' sandals. I mean, I could list more, though.
For me, it was always Jesse dancing. That spot, like the way that situation is portrayed in this show and the connection you have and the slow build up and you're just waiting for, oh, boy, that was a tough one.
That was great. I would go, I think, with Mary removing Jesus' sandals just because it snuck up on me.
Yeah.
Like it was that slow burn episode and then like, boom. Like Jesus is exhausted. He's spent himself. Everybody is in this other place. And then you see her, the one person who's, looking out for Jesus. Okay, last one. And this is where we'll close the episode. This is our Lesson for Life award. What is the takeaway? And I have a few here that I'm going to read just as we kind of reflect on things we took from this episode, and maybe there's something else that you want to close with. First, the idea that grace doesn't disqualify our calling. That thinking about Mary especially, that failure isn't the end. Second, that every disciple brings strengths and struggles, just thinking about how they all show up with these different things that Jesus has called them to contribute as he has with us. Third is that Jesus' questions matter as much as his miracles. Like, do you want to be healed?
Right.
Those questions are meant to pull us in. And then the last one, going back to Nathaniel, being seen precedes being sent. I saw you all the way back then. God, Jesus saw us and he called us and he knew us. And long before he forgave us and made us his people.
I like the questions,
Mm-hmm.
The miracles are great, of course, and they're compelling and educational, inspirational, and they do all of those things for us. But I think his questions are the ones that just sit with me the most, and really challenge me in deep ways. So I feel like for me, it's always going to be centered around questions and the probing nature of those questions and why am I not asking myself those questions more often? Mm-hmm. I think we kind of got into in some of these conversations that's been helpful for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to land. I mean, all four of these things I brought out were kind of my big takeaways, but I love that as a closing place for us, for all of us to just take Jesus' questions and sit with them again as we close out this season of spending some time with the chosen. Do you want to be healed? What are you seeking? Do you still not know me? All those questions we went through from John. And do you believe this? Do you believe all of this that we have learned about Jesus and put our trust in him?
Well, this has been fun. So the Winter Watch Party, our inaugural, I suppose, Winter Watch Party between our seasons on our upcoming episode. Yeah, we're getting back into the season. We got another season planned. We've got some fun things to do, not the least of which is a little thing we like to call the Bible bracket, which is on its way up here in short order. So get ready for that here coming up in March. We really appreciate everyone for tuning in and for following along with us in these little short mini interim episodes between the seasons. So until next episode, everyone, may the Lord bless you and keep you.
Shalom.